Welcome to Breaking Bread number 33. I'm here with Joe Franke, and you are with let me say this right, the Warren Legacy Foundation for the Paranormal Research.
Right.
So that's a long name to remember.
Yeah.
But welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joe.
I'm really glad that you're here with us.
Appreciate it.
And we're here at Cheddar's, and as you can see, we got some foodies that they want to see this, or at least hear. So when we start get our food, we'll have to describe it to them. So the audio listeners need to know what we're talking about. But they have 4 croissants here for us, and they got some sort of butter sauce on top. I've had this before. It's really, really good. But you're the main course. This is not.
Thank you.
Welcome to this interview. Now, do you want to start off on how you got into this foundation?
Well, yeah, the foundation is actually, as the name says, it's the Warren Legacy Foundation, in honor of Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are the pioneers, basically, of paranormal research in many people's eyes, especially mine. But going back further, when I was 18 years old, as a teenager, my wife and I were just dating at the time, only for a couple of months. And back then, and maybe even today, I guess the big thing to do on a Friday night or Saturday night was to go to the movies, just take in a movie, popcorn. So I remember she saw in the local paper that the Warrens and Lorraine were going to be lecturing one town over at a Holiday Inn hotel. And she's like, "Oh, would you like to go and see the Warrens? It'd be something different." And I'm like, "Yeah." I was always interested in hauntings and ghosts, and I had heard of them, through print media and television. We didn't have the internet back then. 1986, this was. And I said, "Great." So we decided to go down there and see them. And I remember as we were walking in, Lorraine was standing at the table selling tickets and collecting the money and stuff. And she looks at me, kind of like you look at somebody when you say, "I know this person, but I can't quite picture the name or where I know them from." And Laurel and I walk up to the table, and she's like, "Honey, have we met before?" She called everybody honey. She was such a sweetheart. And I said, "No, Lorraine." I said, "I have met you, but I've heard a lot about you, and I'm really excited to hear you speak and all that." And she's looking at me. I didn't know what she's doing at the time, but she was reading my aura. Because Lorraine had that ability. She was clairvoyant. She could read people's auras, that supernatural glow that kind of surrounds all of us. And it presents itself in colors. And so she says to me, she goes, "There's a reason why you're here tonight." She goes, "Make sure you come and see Ed and I after the show, after the presentation." Here I'm 18 years old. I'm like, "What do they want to talk to me about? I don't think I could keep a thought in my head." So we make it through the presentation. It was probably about 90 minutes. It was a fascinating slideshow. And they were talking about stuff like Amityville, which wasn't the Amityville horror when they first got brought in on it.
Right.
They were called in by Marvin Scott, when I think News Channel 5 reporter called them in on this house where his family fled after 28 days, with nothing but the clothes on their back. So, anyway, we get to the end of the presentation, and Ed and Tony, their son-in-law, we were cleaning up, and Ed's like, "Come on, Lorraine, let's get out of here. I'm hungry. We're going to the diner." And so we went to the diner across the street, and she's sitting across from me as you are. She's holding my hands, and my wife is here, Ed is here, Tony's sitting back there. And she's telling me what she's doing. She's looking at my aura. She's looking at me. She's like, "Honey, you were meant to do this work. Would you like to come and work with Ed and I? We have some students, that we're teaching." And I'm like, "Yes." I didn't skip a beat. So that's how I initially met them. But now I know that for me it was a vocation. This was not a coincidence. This was meant to be. I mean, here I am almost 40 years later, and kind of come full circle, because now I'm trying to teach people what I learned, people that want to help people. So They used to have classes at this little place called Hawley Manor in Newtown, Connecticut. Now, the room wasn't much bigger than a coat closet, and there's probably about 6 of us, including my wife, who was my girlfriend.
Right.
And I remember Ed brought in his briefcase and his box full of tapes, a television set, tape recorders, audio and video, and files, notes. And that's when I first learned about Amityville and the Annabelle doll and the curse behind that and a bunch of other iconic cases that are depicted in the movies that you see these days, The Conjuring 1, 2, and 3. Those are based on actual Warren cases. And he would play audio and videotapes, interviews, mysterious voices and sounds that they would record. They'd show paranormal or poltergeist activity in the video. You know, it's grainy, you know, it's an old video, VHS tape. And I was in awe, you know, and I would hear the stories and you'd feel the goosebumps, you know, and people were like, well, weren't you scared to hear these stories? I'm like, yeah, I'm a man, I'm a human being, you know. Fear is a natural emotion. So that went on for a couple of years, and then Laurel and I would go on cases with the Warrens, and we'd go on interviews, and we'd travel all over New England, you know, because we both had jobs. I wasn't at liberty to travel to other countries with them, couldn't afford it either, but when we were in New England, we would, you know, drive to New Hampshire. I remember we did Colby Sawyer College. We would drive to Vermont and Mass. So that's how I got started. But it was a couple of years before Ed would allow me to go out on a case on my own or with another investigator. And there's a famous case called The Haunting in Connecticut. They actually made a movie about it, a theatrical movie, in 2009 called, under the same name, The Haunting in Connecticut. And Ed's like, he's like, hey kid, he goes, I got a case that's right up where you live. And literally, this house is about 15 minutes from me. He goes, but you're not ready yet. And he was right. I mean, this turned out to be demonic in nature. I mean, this just wasn't Casper the Friendly Ghost. Right. His family went through hell, really. So, you know, and the rest, as they say, is history. I mean, I got almost 40 years worth of experience and stories. Some of them working with the Warrens, some of them on my own. You know, I started my own group in Connecticut back in 1993 called the Connecticut Paranormal Research Society with a friend. So the two of us worked on hundreds of cases over the years that weren't related to the New England Society of Psychic Research. So Ed passed away in 2006, so I lost my mentor there. Ed, I know he loved me. I called him Gramps. You know, Graham and Gramps, they were like my grandparents. And he'd call me up on a Sunday or a Saturday and say, hey kid, what are you doing?
Broccoli cheese, loaded baked potato.
I have the potato.
All right.
Awesome.
Y'all
Thank
enjoy.
you.
Whoa, I'm so sorry, baby.
That's all right.
That looks great. So he'd call me up, you know, and just say, you know, hey kid, what are you doing? I'm like, well, nothing, Ed. What do you need? Come down and meet me in my office. Now, the Warrens, if you haven't heard of the famous occult museum, that in their, well, it's off of their house, down back by the garage, but there's like a breezeway, or I call it the tunnel, leading to it from the house. And he had an office off of that, right, you know, another room right off of the museum. And in the museum are all these haunted items that they've collected over the years, from 1952 when they started, you know, to that present day, and that include the Annabelle doll, the real one, which is it's a Raggedy Ann doll. You know, it seemed innocent enough, but there's a lot of stories behind that doll and what happened to people that mistreated it or disrespected it. And it's not the doll itself; it's just an inanimate object. It was whatever spirit, entity, whatever you want to call it, demonic force attached itself to that doll. Okay. And they do that to gain your trust and your sympathy. They play on your sympathy, and that's exactly what happened in that case, which we can get into if you like. I mean, I'm very long-winded, but I've got so much to tell.
No, that's what we're here for. We want to hear these stories, but we're gonna talk about what we just got here.
This looks great.
So we got the broccoli and cheese. You had mentioned you got broccoli and cheese, so I was like, you know what? I usually just get regular broccoli.
Oh.
I'm gonna double up with what you got.
Broccoli and cheese casserole.
Yeah, never had this before, so looks very interesting. Looks tasty. I got the mashed potatoes with cheese and bacon on top. Trying to make it like a loaded mashed potato, but it's mashed potato or whatever. And then the meatloaf is, I'd say what, about 1.5 inches thick, almost 2 inches thick. Good portions.
Wow.
Gravy on top, brown gravy. And then you've already dipped into the croissant.
Yeah, it's delicious. It's got like a glazed coating on it. It's really good. It melts in your mouth.
Right? But you basically got the same thing I just mentioned, only you actually have a real baked potato.
I got the loaded baked potato with the cheese and the butter, and I got an end cut on the meatloaf. It's
I did too.
huge. Oh, you got one too?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the whole meatloaf.
Yeah.
It's huge.
You never know.
Wow. If it tastes as good as it looks, we're in for a treat.
Oh, definitely. I'm going to try this casserole.
We're going to try the meatloaf. Here we go, folks. Oh, that's good.
Broccoli and cheese is good.
I'll try that next.
But I will definitely, on the next time around, might actually consider this again. I just like broccoli. So it's almost a guaranteed thing. Broccoli, if broccoli's on the menu, we're getting it.
I love vegetables. I eat my vegetables. Try the potato now. Looks yummy. It's a nice sized portion too.
It feels like it's enough to fill you up without filling you up. You know what I'm saying? Where you're waddling out of here, but at the same time you're not going hungry. That's the worst to me, is coming in, sitting down, eating, and you're like, man, I'm still hungry. I gotta find something else to tack on to just to get it over there. And you've obviously ordered more than you need to get it right to that spot. But yeah, this is good.
Plus you have the croissant rolls also.
Dip into it in a second.
That's right, you haven't tried it yet. Forget about the ghost stories.
How was everything, guys?
Excellent.
So far, excellent.
Thank you so
Are we
much.
satisfied with that versus chicken tenders?
Well, I haven't tried the tenders yet, but I'm satisfied with this.
That's not to say we won't order a second order for chicken tenders. You know?
Okay.
You did kind of like get me on that mindset of maybe I could take something to go.
Yeah, for sure. Lunch tomorrow. Why not?
Yeah.
All right.
Better than convention food.
Thank you, dear.
Definitely.
Yeah.
There you go. If you guys need anything or you change your mind, you just let me know, baby.
Thank you so much.
You. So now here's the fun part of the interview. Taking turns talking and taking turns eating.
Okay.
So
you wash it down there so I can talk.
So they brought you on. They got you into the first house, which is now they have the museum, and you had your first case that they said you weren't ready for.
Well, I wasn't ready for it at that time, but there's a lot of interesting stuff that happened leading up to that. The Warrens used to have. Well, let me back up a second. So what I started to do is I started to go to just about every one of their lectures with them.
Okay.
And that was kind of my I wanted to, because I learned. You know, they had a couple of different presentations, so I watched the presentations over and over again with them, heard the stories, and they would tell the story of what happened, but they would also describe the approach they would take, the interviews, what questions to ask. what was going on in the house, how many people lived there, how many people experienced it. I mean, sometimes a certain person may be the target of the haunting, not the whole family. You could have a haunted object, you could have a haunted person, you could have a haunted house. So, I mean, I had a notebook, I used to take notes, and my wife would take notes. She would help Lorraine out, because Lorraine would go into her trance and be speaking to spirits through the mind's eye. And that was her gift. It was almost like, and I would be asking questions, Ed would be asking questions, so it's almost like we're interviewing a spirit that lived maybe 200 years ago, who was still walking the earth, thinking they're living in their time frame still. Some of these spirits didn't realize they were dead. Because I remember Lorraine saying, the one that we were up at Colby Sawyer College in New Hampshire, she was speaking to a spirit of the woman who run the house. I think maybe maid or whatever, that's not what they called them, but Lorraine was talking to her and said, honey, what are you doing? She's like, and the ghost would say to Lorraine, well, I'm taking care of Master Colby. The term she used, Master Colby, so it's a servant, whatever. And Lorraine's like, honey, you're dead. What year is it? And I forget what year it was. It was like 17 something. And she said the ghost could hear her, the spirit could hear her, but it looked very confused. Lorraine would describe the look on her face. She could see her. So I would ask questions, like what year it is, what year is it, and what's your name, and I think we got all that information. I don't remember. It's over 30 years ago. And Lorraine would get the question, the spirit would answer the questions through Lorraine. My mind was blown at that point. So they had these lectures, and then at the end of the lecture, sometimes they had a sign-up sheet for something they called a ghost safari. And what a ghost safari was is that they'd have people sign up, say a dozen people sign up. Everyone would take their own cars and meet the Warrens at a meeting spot, at a meetup spot near their house where they lived. It was a restaurant parking lot. And we would follow them from place to place, and we'd make a stop. I remember we stopped at a church one time, all got out of the cars, and we made a circle. And then Lorraine said, okay guys, at this location on such and such a date, there was an exorcism performed. With Bishop McKinnell, I believe. And this is what happened. This is what the person was afflicted with. And we're all like in awe listening. People's like, whoa. And we didn't go into the church, but they told the story. And then we get in the cars, follow them to the next spot. One of them was a sporting goods store where the second floor was an apartment. And they said that the activity in the apartment was so bad, so noisy, that the store couldn't stay open past like 8 o'clock at night, because it would get you could hear all these noises of footsteps and music, people talking, like mumbling, like you couldn't make out what they were saying, but you could tell they were people talking. And the store employees were so scared that they didn't want to work past, once it got dark or whatever. Okay. So, and then, the last stop on the tour was a place called Dudleytown. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Dudleytown, Connecticut is called the Cursed Village. And it was, I'm trying to remember the history, it's been so long, but Dudleytown it's all wooded now, it's all overgrown, and a bunch of felled trees, and part of the Appalachian Trail actually goes through that area in Connecticut. There's like 52 miles of Appalachian Trail through Connecticut. And you'd walk right by it if you didn't know what you were looking for. The only thing left of the town are just some old stone foundations. There's no structures left, no roads or anything like that. So I remember the Warrens said they were running low on gas. So we all drove to the top of Bald Mountain Road, was the name of it. And there's another road called Dark Entry Forest Road, so kind of weird names. The road ends, and there's like a big log that goes across and a couple of big rocks, stones. So Ed had just come off his first heart attack, so he couldn't walk down into that. It was over a mile hike to get to the ruins of the foundations. So Ed and Lorraine stayed behind, and they were going to, wait for us. and go down and get gas and come back. So one of their other students had been with them longer than I had, knew the route, and he had been there many times. So he acted as the group tour guide. And I'd say there was 10 or 12 people. And so we hiked down in there, and it was a pretty steep hike in some spots. It was a good thing I didn't go. We get to the foundation. He's telling us the story about what happened there. Like the Dudley family broke from the King of England. The king put a curse on the family. There's all kinds of stories out there and variations. But when we finished and we hiked back up, Ed and Lorraine were there. We're like, oh, okay, they got gas. No, the car wouldn't start. And they're like, it's like every time I come up here, something happens. You know, something out of the ordinary happens. Is it paranormal? Coincidence? Who knows? So that was the end of the tour. Everybody was getting in their cars and leaving. And I said to my girlfriend, I'm like, well, we can't just leave them here. You know, and being a 18-year-old kid, I'm like, I'm a grease monkey. You know, I had my toolbox in the car. And then a station wagon, I think it was a Chevy or something, a station wagon. So it's like, yeah, I must have ran out of gas. I'm like, well, okay, well, let me take a look at it. And we open up the hood, and I crawl in, and I'm hitting the accelerator switch, and there's gas shooting into the carburetor. I said, well, you're getting gas, but it just kept in, it wouldn't start. I'm thinking, I'm like 20, 30 minutes. I'm trying to figure out why this thing won't fire. I'm like, is it the coil? Is it this? Is it that? So I think to myself, like, could it be that simple? It's like something just came to me to check the fuse. And I went in there. I go, Ed, hop out for a second. Let me look. I pull open the fuse panel, and I pull out the fuel pump fuse, and it's blown. The fuse is blown. He didn't have a spare, but I said, I'm going to take the fuse out of the radio, put it in, it started right up. It was that simple. Wow. And I'm like, wow. And I mean, how many people would think about the fuel pump fuse? But it's almost like it just came to me to check the fuse. So it started right up. So they did have enough gas, and then they were so elated and so happy. Like, all right, come on, kids, we're going out and get gas. We'll go out to dinner. Took us to dinner. You know, and by the time we finished dinner, I don't know, by then it was maybe 8 o'clock. Oh, kids, what do you got going on? Oh, nothing. It was, come back to the house. It probably lived another half hour from there.
Okay.
Never been in their house before. Heard about the museum, obviously, from all the lectures.
You've been with them for how long before?
Probably a few months at that point. It was at the beginning of our relationship.
Still, okay.
So, you know, we go into the house, and I'm like goosebumps, and we're like, you know, don't touch anything, and this house has got all kinds of haunted objects in it. And, I mean, it's all psychosomatic. It's all up here. So we go into the little kitchen, and we're having, you know, Lorraine made coffee, and so Ed starts to tell me about the Amityville case. And one night when they returned home from the Amityville house, that he heard this whooshing of wind and this loud thunder noise, like almost sheet metal rattling.
Okay.
You know, and they had a staircase that went down into the basement to a room that he called his Halloween room, where he had all kinds of Halloween stuff, and he actually had a real coffin down there with a wax dummy in it. It's kind of morbid, but hey, whatever. So, and then off of that room was this big wooden door, like you'd find in a castle. And it went through a breezeway, like a covered, it almost looked like a covered bridge. And that went to another door that went into the museum. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So he's telling me about this story, about this black figure that just, like this mist, comes up out of the stairway. Here's this whirling, whooshing wind noise, and here's this thunderous rattling. And he said, he goes, I knew right away that something wasn't good. You see this black figure come up out of the basement, and I'm standing there like this, like listening to him.
Are you guys doing okay?
Yes.
Doing good so far.
Thank you.
Thanks. And I said, where did this happen? He goes, right about where you're standing. He wasn't kidding. And I'm like, I could feel, I could just feel my goosebumps.
Yeah.
So he looks at his watch, and he goes, I'd love to show you the museum. I think it might have been 10, quarter after 9. goes, I'd love you to show you the museum, and I wanted to see it. But he goes, it's too late. He goes, I don't even go in there after 9 o'clock, and I don't think it's safe. So they would always tell me between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. were called the psychic hours, where the activity would ramp up, with 3 o'clock in the morning being what he called the devil's hour. 3 o'clock in the morning, he said the number 3 is like an insult to the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. And, this is what he taught me. So he's like, I don't even work in the museum or my office after 9 p.m. if it doesn't feel safe. Because stuff would start happening. Noises, things would move. I'm like, oh my God, I've never experienced anything like this before. So by then it was, we had coffee, it was the end of the night, and telling me also all these stories. And he said to me, he goes, wait here for a second. He goes in, he gets a copy of his book, The Demonologist. And it's a paperback book. I mean, you'd be really hard pressed to find one today. They're out of print. You can get the book, but it's on its third or fourth print. And he and Lorraine both signed it to Laurel and I. And Ed didn't sign a lot of stuff, so I still have that book today. Actually, I have it at the convention that I lay out so people can see it. And I'm very careful. As a matter of fact, when I pack it in my bag, I don't leave it there at the convention overnight. I put it in my bag and take it home. I can't replace that. I mean, they're both passed on. So that's where I got my first copy of the book, The Demonologist, and received quite a few other of their books signed to me and Laurel by them over the years.
Okay, so we're going to take a real quick break right now. We're going to give you an opportunity to eat your food, and so we'll be right back. Don't go nowhere. All right, welcome back. We're at Breaking Bread number 33, part 2. I'm here with Joe Franke. And as you can see, he's already done. I'm almost done. But the food, I recommend coming here. Definitely
second
good food. Yeah, definitely. So we're going to continue on, but I think we decided that we're going to kind of fast forward from where we were. So if you guys want to watch more, definitely check out his lectures. Check out any event that he shows up to, and maybe you'll figure out where he left off and fill in the blanks. So, proceed, wherever you want to start.
I think I left off with the Warrens being at their house and seeing the museum for the first time. So obviously there's a lot to tell. I've got 40 years to tell. I spent most of my adult life with the Warrens and working with them, working for them. So I'll fast forward quite a number of years, even close to present day. Ed Warren.
Do you need anything, guys?
Oh, I'm good.
No, I'm
Thank
good.
you. It was excellent.
I'm going to pull your bill up for whenever you're ready, okay?
Thank you so much, dear.
You're welcome.
Can I
No
give you
rush,
this?
guys.
Thank you, dear.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Ed passed away in 2006, and Lorraine, in honor of Ed and in his memory, kept up the work, as much as she could, and she was getting on in years also. So,
He just died on us.
oh,
Somebody's here.
maybe it's a sign from them.
I'll have to let her know.
It is weird how things happen. But, so, I'm trying to think of where I left off. So Lorraine kept on to work for many, many years, and she finally passed away in 2019, which is, very sad. But I've got years and years worth of personal stories with the Warrens and events of theirs, their anniversaries and birthday parties my wife and I attended. And I mean, they're just lovely people. People ask me what they were like as people. I said they were like typical grandparents, but they were very loving people, very giving. They never charged a dime for their services, and neither do I, and neither do we in the foundation. When we help people, that it's absolutely free of charge, and that even if someone can't afford to pay expenses like travel expenses, You know, because there's times I might have to go to Oklahoma or California or Texas.
Just
It died on us.
Yeah, it died on us.
It's very, very touching.
Nobody touched it. I'm telling you.
The battery do?
I think it's haunted.
No, there we go. There we go.
It's just messing with us.
Thank you guys. Y'all have a blessed evening.
Thank
You
you too.
Thank you. God bless. So, sorry, I keep losing my train of thought here. Talking about Lorraine. So, Lorraine has helped me out in a lot of my personal cases too that weren't part of the foundation. This would be even before the foundation.
Okay.
So, I know this is something Lorraine wanted. She wanted to keep their legacy alive. Which we did too. So, her grandson, my good friend Chris, we started the Warren Legacy Foundation around, I think it was back in 2014. However, we're still gaining momentum. We're a global network of like dedicated professionals, and you don't have to necessarily be a paranormal investigator to be part of this team. We have professionals like doctors, attorneys, nurses, psychological, medical professionals, and that's important. I even have a good friend of mine in Connecticut who has no paranormal experience at all. However, he's kind of an expert in dementia, and that can come in handy because I would say a large percentage of the cases that come in are not paranormal in nature. And I'm not saying people are making things up. To them, it's very real. You know, in their mind, it's real. So you have to ask the right questions. And before I interview someone, I'm going to say, look, I'm going to apologize in advance, but I'm going to ask you some very personal questions. And some questions may lead to other personal questions. And, you're coming to me for help, and I want to help you, but I want to make sure you're going to be comfortable answering these questions. And, the people that are serious about this will say, Joe, you can ask me anything. I just want help. I want this affliction to be gone. And okay, so I'll be asking questions like, is there any history of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, sexual, physical abuse, in the home at all? Are you taking any certain prescriptions that might cause hallucinations? Can you provide me with a copy of your prescription list? And they'll sign the necessary paperwork so it's all legal.
Yeah.
And so I'm not asking you these questions because I'm nosy. I'm asking you because I'm trying to get to the root of the problem. First, I'm trying to figure out what's happening. Why is it only happening to you and your husband is not experiencing it, or vice versa? Because that happens a lot. I'll interview his family and the husband's like, I don't know, she says she sees this dark figure in the closet. I never see it. It's like, well, you're never home, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, so we try to interview them separately, especially if the family, everyone in the family has experienced something, because you want to make sure their stories jive. It's like the police do, interview the witnesses separately. So they're not just like, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot. No, you want to, because our time is valuable to us too. Like I said, we don't charge, for what we do. And if my wife was here, she would tell you. I've been away many nights, even when she was pregnant with the kids, which I do feel bad about. But she'd look at me and say, I know you're out helping somebody. I'm fine. I'm like, well, I'm on speed dial. If you're going to labor or something.
Yeah.
So we try to find out the answer to these questions so we can figure out how to proceed and form a game plan. Fortunately, as I said, a very small percentage, I'd say maybe 2-3%, are actually paranormal. And I tell people when I lecture too, because I don't just try to entertain people, I try to educate them, okay? And I tell them, don't take the nuclear option and go right to ghost or, God forbid, demon. That word is thrown around way too loosely these days. And usually it's done on purpose by these YouTubers because it hits the algorithm and pumps them up to the top of the list. And
try and get that drama.
I don't play those games. I don't have a YouTube channel. I don't have a TikTok. I have a personal Facebook page, which anybody can reach out to me on. We do have a website for the foundation, and a Facebook page where people can also reach me. But people are like, oh, you should have a YouTube channel and tell these stories. It's not a bad idea, but they're true stories. They're not BS stories I'm making up for views or likes. So once we find out these things, I'll I'll say, okay, let's try this. All right. So say they're hearing like knocking or scratching noises or whatever, and they can't identify them. Well, let's see. Maybe you have squirrels in the attic. That was one case where they did found like rodents or squirrels in the walls or in the attic. So always look for a natural explanation first. You don't jump right to the supernatural. Because one of the other first questions I ask is, how many of these TV shows do you watch? How many of these movies do? Oh, we love them. We love them. My favorite is this one, is that one. And I'm like, okay, bingo. I'm like, okay. Then they start investigating their own house. They go out and they order from Amazon or go out and buy this equipment that they see on TV shows. And, yay capitalism. Someone is making a fortune off of the sale of this equipment that's scientifically unproven. Just because you've got a REM pod that goes off in the middle of the room and no one's near it doesn't mean there's a spirit walking by. I tell people this, these EMF detectors, I said, listen, the Earth is just one big magnet. I said the magnetic field surrounding the Earth is what protects us from being toasted by the sun. I said, if you're going to go in and try to conduct a proper investigation, in my humble opinion, 'cause it's tough. You don't want people to say, oh, who's this know-it-all? And I'm like, look, I don't know everything, but after 40 years, I know a few things. So if you want to do a proper investigation and get baseline readings, ask the homeowner or the business owner, whatever the case may be, would you mind turning off the main power for 20 minutes or so? The food won't spoil, but we need to have no juice flowing through the wires. There's many, many things that could set off an EMF detector. Number one is cell phones. So when you watch these videos, they all have the cell phones in their hands. Sometimes they got walkie-talkies in their pocket. All these electronic devices they could easily set off these devices that they paid sometimes hundreds of dollars for, and are completely swindled and convinced that there's a ghost in front of them. These apps that they make for the phones now, I think it's ridiculous, and I know people watching this might get mad at me, but look, take it from a veteran paranormal researcher. I'm old school. I don't have all these toys. I don't have a REM pod. My buddy does. He's got all the toys. Bill does. But I can't afford to buy them anyway. But they're scientifically unproven. Could there be something to it? Yeah. But now they have these little plastic balls that light up. They call them cat balls. And they put them in the middle of the floor. They put them on the bed, and it goes off. Okay, well, all right, it's pretty. I'm going to put them on my Christmas tree, red and green lights. It doesn't prove anything. I said, if you have, in all the cases I've worked on, trust me on this, if you've got an intelligent haunting, especially one that may be negative in nature, I won't say demonic, because you could have a negative haunting that's human, that was a human spirit. Usually if you're a jerk in life, you might be a jerk in death. If they're intelligent enough, they'll be able to communicate with you. But they won't need these little gadgets to do so.
Right.
It's like white noise theory, I'm sure you've heard of. Yeah. These spirits can communicate more easily through white noise. Well, think about it. You do an investigation, you set up, say, 4 video cameras and 4 audio recorders around the house. Then you're there all night, maybe 10, 12 hours. Well, guess what? Now you got 8 pieces of equipment that you and or your team have to listen to 8 to 10 hours on. So say it's 10 hours times 8 pieces of equipment.
80 hours.
Do the math. I mean, of just sitting there listening to static or nothing, just silence. So your mind is going to play tricks on you. And if you want to hear something or you want to see something, your mind is a very powerful thing. And the suggestion, so now you're creating, we call it self-manifesting. And maybe you did catch something. But if you did, and you heard something anomalous that you couldn't explain naturally, well, then you got to look into that a little further. Don't automatically say, I hear footsteps. Well, maybe that was, Frank in the next room walking around. So it gets frustrating for me because I try to walk a line where I don't want to insult anybody. Because a lot of these researchers, they put their heart and soul into it, and they mean well. But I call them thrill seekers. And what I don't like is they'll misrepresent themselves and their experience and their knowledge to get into someone's home because it's cool. Hey, we got an investigation. Grab all their gear, throw them in the mystery machine. Let's go. I don't do that. And many times I help people over the phone or through a Zoom call or something. I don't even have to physically go to the property because we try to figure it out. Is it paranormal? Nope. This is what it is. We found it. Oh, there was a short in the light switch. That was causing the lights to flicker. Always look for that natural, normal explanation as opposed to the supernatural. And a lot of people, they want it to be supernatural now. They want it so badly that they're like, well, how do you explain this or that? Or look at this picture in the mirror or the window. And I'm like, it's just a reflection, or it's a smudge, or it's pareidolia. Your mind is making it into something that it's not.
Try to find a face out of nothing.
Exactly. I said, listen, have you ever laid in the grass on a clear summer day and look up at the clouds, and you look long enough at a cloud, you can see Mickey Mouse or SpongeBob, because your mind can make that cloud look like anything it wants. So I try to tell people, don't do that. Don't investigate your own home. I got a woman I just talked to a couple weeks ago. She's got a 5-year-old daughter, single mom, swears she's got something in her home. And they sent me audio tapes of her walking around the house doing like an EVP session, electronic voice phenomenon.
Yes.
With her daughter in tow. Because I hear her daughter go, "Who are you talking to, Mom?" And she's like, "Shh, I'm trying to get an answer."
We got it?
Yeah.
No, it died again.
Okay.
I guess it's free.
Yeah. I'll take your card and I'll go run it on the system.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Oh, no worries.
But you see what I'm getting at? It's like, I'm trying not to insult anybody. I'm like, you gotta look at the alternatives. You have tunnel vision. You want it to be paranormal. You think it's cool in your mind that I found a ghost, or I've got that. I'm gonna have my 15 minutes of fame. I'm gonna throw it up on YouTube and get a million likes, and then starting to get followers, and then get monetized. I'm not about that. Look, I need money like everybody else, but I won't sell my soul for it.
Right.
I tell people, I said, all I have going for me is my name and my
Thank you
integrity.
so much, baby.
Thank you.
You guys have a blessed, wonderful
You
night,
too.
okay?
You too, dear.
You too.
Get home safe.
Oh, yes.
So I tell people, I said, look, all I have is my name and my integrity, and neither one of them are for sale to the highest bidder. And a lot of these people do sell out. And yes, some of them do get famous, air quotes. I hate the term paranormal celebrity. Just because you're on a TV show. I've done the TV shows. I've actually had arguments with producers because they want to tell you what to say, where to stand. I'm like, wait a minute. How old are you? 26? Just out of college? I've been doing this 40 years. Let me do what I do or forget it. I've walked off sets.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm about.
You're not the only one that I've heard about that.
Well,
there's others that I've heard that we're told this is what you got to say, this is how you got to do, and it's like it's amazing how, like you said, some people sell their soul just to be famous. It's
not something I'll do. My dad used to have a saying, and he taught me this, and maybe you've heard this before, and your parents taught you too. My dad used to say to me, he was a stubborn old German. Never told you he loved you, but he did. My father was home every night, wasn't out drinking in a bar, he was home every night. And he'd say, you know what? He says, I got to get up every morning and look myself in the mirror, and I got to like what I see. Okay, to thine own self be true. I'm sure you've heard that.
Yep.
But there's a kind of famous poem called The Man in the Glass. If you haven't heard it, you can look it up. It's a beautiful poem, and basically it says, when I'm talking about integrity, look, the only one that you need to be truthful with and true to is the person in the mirror. And I used to know it by heart, but it's been a while. But I tell people this, I said, look, I hope I'm not upsetting anyone, insulting anyone. That isn't my intention. My intention is just to keep an open mind. So, usually start out my lectures by saying, how many people here believe in spirits or ghosts? Most people raise their hand. That's probably why they're there. And I did this yesterday. So how many people don't? And you're always getting a few people maybe sheepish about it. I'm like, good. I said, how many people here had nothing better to do tonight? Break the ice. I say, I'm glad. I said, now if you leave this room tonight believing, he may have something there, great. I said, if you don't, if you think I'm full of hooey, God bless you, we can still be friends, all right? So I said, I'm like Fox News, I report, you decide. I'm not pushing my beliefs on anyone. But obviously, if you're here sitting in the audience tonight, you're here because you're interested at least in what I'm going to talk to you about. So that's the big challenge today. My job pretty much with the foundation, I'm the chairman of the board for the foundation. We do have a board structure. Chris, my friend Chris is the director. And then we have regional managers throughout the globe. Okay. We've got a regional manager in New Zealand that covers Australia, Tasmania, and New Zealand. We have someone in the UK. We have someone in Germany. We have someone in Costa Rica. We have someone in South America, actually, is Chris, because he lives in Brazil. I'm in the Northeast. However, I abdicated I didn't want to be the director. I couldn't handle the workload, and I'm not that organized, admittedly. So one of my team has gracefully taken over, and she's a single mom. She's a stay-at-home mom, and she's happy to do it. We're not that busy. It's not like we have 100 cases to manage, but 2 more just came in before I flew down here. And they're in Connecticut, so I'm probably going to have to take care of myself, which is fine, right, because my next closest team member is in New York, upstate New York. So anyway, we got the United States covered. We got Bill, here in the South. We have people in the Midwest, out on the West Coast. I've got a couple of people. So if someone comes up, puts in an application through the foundation, they go to the website, they feel they need help, or they've got some kind of problem. There's a short questionnaire to fill out, name, address, all that stuff. And then we'll contact them, set up a phone interview, and just go through the basic questions first. And it's like a tiered process. Basic questions, try to weed something out. Then it may go to the next level. Sometimes the regional directors will call me and say, Joe, can you sit in on this? I'm like, yeah, sure, And then, of course, I'll have a million other questions that they may not have thought of. Right. Because one question may lead to 10 more, And we do the same thing with applicants. And people tease me like, well, Joe, if it was up to you, we wouldn't let anybody in. I'm like, well, the reason I do that is, like I said, I have 3 jobs, basically, the way I see it. To help people, number 1. Number 2, to educate people. And the third, and probably most important, is to protect the Warren name. Right. Okay, because there have been people throughout history that have not been kind to the Warrens. They think they're frauds, they're hoaxes, they're liars, they're manipulative because they want to make money. No, that's not what it's about. And I'll stake my reputation on that because I knew these people. And usually those kind of comments come from people that never met them. They never met them. In their life, never even spoke to them. But they put these negative comments out on social media platforms. And I will not engage someone in a public forum like that because even though I may be 1,000% right, nobody wins those arguments. No. You just both look foolish. So I usually will say, if I get upset enough, and based on what they said, I'll send them a private message and say, hey, this is who I am. I've known the Warrens for 40 years. Can I answer any questions that might change your thinking? And could you please take that down? I'll say, why would you post something like that? Why are you so angry?
That's the funny thing is you're also being respectful.
Trying to be.
As you reach out. So we're going to start wrapping this up real fast. So I do have a few things we're going to change up here. Yeah. Usually my outros, we just kind of refer to you and let you know, where you can be found and stuff like that. But we're going to change it up because I'm going to have all that stuff in the links anyway.
Okay.
So I thank you.
Well, thank you.
But we're going to steal something from Carlo at 4GQ TV. He likes to end his interviews with the question: pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
What was it again?
Yes or no?
To what?
Pineapple on pizza.
For me, nay. For my wife, yay.
Oh no. How?
She likes that Hawaiian pizza.
That's okay.
Actually, it's not that bad.
You know what's funny though? Hawaiian pizza was actually invented by a Greek in Canada.
There you go.
You just never know.
But good question.
Yeah, right? It's always fun. And so I figured I'd throw that out on you. Now, we're going to finish it up with 2 more questions.
Okay.
So, another friend of mine, he always finished off with, what would you tell the next person?
Would you mind handing me the salt, pepper, and sugars? And I'm not rushing you guys at all. You can sit here all night. I
Well,
just
we
wanna
just want to
feel
do
this.
that.
I just want to feel
I thought we were the sugars. So, what would you tell the next person watching this, having an inkling or anything that you could do to give them an inspiration?
Well, first of all, if you're interested in the kind of work that we do, I applaud you. I mean, I'm not the only one that does this work. I'm not the only end-all be-all. But get into the work properly. Don't just go out and buy a bunch of this equipment you see on TV and then go out there and try to get cases, because you're dealing with real people's lives and their emotions. Okay? I definitely encourage people, if they want to help, to do it the right way. Find a team, whether it be us or somebody else, that you can join and learn.
Okay.
There are a lot of experienced people out there that have been doing this a long time as well. I feel I learned from the best, but I'm biased. But I'd say, I don't want to discourage anyone, but be careful. Be extremely careful. You really need to be strong. Physical size and strength has nothing to do with it. You need to be strong spiritually, emotionally, and psychologically for this type of work, because you never know what you're going to be up against. You never know if you're going to come into grandma coming for a visit, or Satan's harvest. And I never know either. That's why I have to be very careful when I send the team somewhere. It's like, well, what kind of experience do they have? And if this is reported as a really bad negative case, well, I don't want, this person there because they don't have the experience. And certainly don't go alone. Don't go to old abandoned buildings, schools, asylums, hospitals, graveyards. Spirits don't hang around where their bodies were. Number one thing is safety. You could fall through the floorboard. You got the ceiling come down on your head. You could cut yourself. Could be homeless people living there, or somebody that might hurt you. Especially if it's off. It says no trespassing. Be respectful. I tell people that want to go to cemeteries just to take pictures, get proper permission. Most cemeteries that I know of close at dusk, and it's usually posted.
Yeah.
If you really want to go in at night, spirits are there all the time. If they're there, they're not just coming out at night. Contact the cemetery, or what I used to do is call the police department. Say, hey, and they usually knew who I was by then.
Okay.
I'm like, do you mind if I go there for about an hour? Oh no, Joe, we know your car. You're good.
Okay.
But sorry, I get a long-winded answer, but be respectful. I try not to step on graves when I go to cemeteries, things like that. Just be respectful, but get the proper training before you embark on this endeavor.
Okay, so now here's another one that you probably have never heard anybody ask. I know somebody else does it too. I don't remember this YouTuber's name, but he's done something like that. So again, it was another inspiration for me. What would you ask the next person that I interview? What question do you have to ask them so they will answer without knowing anything ahead of time?
Well,
What would you want to know from the next person that we don't even know who it is yet?
well, one thing I'd like to know is what is their qualifications? What is their history? What is their knowledge base for this type of work?
Okay.
And like I said, I say that, I ask that respectfully. You know, this isn't a competition. You know, but the reason I ask that is for some of the things I've already mentioned. Because if someone contacts you through your website, Facebook page, whatever, and they're looking for help, whether they really need it or not, they think they do, they want to make sure that they're getting someone that knows what they're doing. So I would just ask that. So what are your qualifications? Because it's a question I ask our candidates all the time. What can you bring to the table?
Okay.
You know, and if people ask me that question, I basically tell them everything I just told you tonight.
I'm sure you got a lot more than that too.
I do.
Which,
I do.
yes. So definitely thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend. It was my pleasure. Pleasure's all on this side of the table.
I think it's more heavier on this side now. So again, thank you, and thank you guys for watching. Thank you to the listeners. Really appreciate your times and yours, obviously. So check back again, and thank you very much.